Uh, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So when I was first invited to talk at TEDxUNYP, I was really excited. I thought, okay, so somebody is recognizing my efforts. Somebody can see the work I did in the last few months and years, actually. Because for the last 12 years, I've been aware of having mental health and of the importance of caring about it. And for the last 7 years, I've been trying to remind others that they have their mental health and they should take care of it. So that was about June, July, when I was first contacted by UNIP, asked to talk here. And that was all the excitement that I described. And because I love my job and love what I do, I started thinking of all the things I can say here and all the things I can talk about, and how I'm going to tell you about the idea we had with my friends, and how studying in the UK really helped me to recognize that there is still some stuff that we don't talk about here in the Czech Republic and in the Western world. It's very common to talk about it, and that's mental health. But also mental illness. And this is the brain I love. That's actually my brain. And that's the brain that came up with all the ideas of what I can do about changing the language, changing the situation here in the Czech Republic, and how we talk about mental health. So that was June. I was very excited. And then several months later, an email came. And it asked me to write my bio for TEDxUNYP. It asked me to write a short draft of the speech. And suddenly I realized, well, why did they invite me? I have nothing to say. I'm a failure. Nothing in my life is going well, and I can't even get out of bed in the morning, let alone write some draft of a speech that I should give, and that should be very inspirational. Because after 7 years of taking care of my mental health, being really aware of it, and sticking to my medication schedule, my depression was back, and I wasn't prepared for it. I've been going around Czech Republic for the past 2 years talking about how important it is to talk about your mental health, and how important it is to share the stories if you're mentally unwell. And then I found myself in the situation after 7 years actually relapsing into depression and anxiety. And suddenly I wanted to write an email saying, I'm not feeling physically well and I can't attend TEDx. Because, I came down with this horrible flu and I'm in the hospital and they're taking care of me and I can't breathe and everything. And I didn't want to mention that I was actually lying in my bed and couldn't wash my hair, and started using the dry shampoo a little bit too much because that was much easier. And the same brain that I loved just 2 months before that, I ended up hating. I felt like a hypocrite because, 2 years spending talking to people about how important it is to talk about mental health, and I was the one telling my story. I wasn't even able to write an email saying sincerely, sorry, I'm down in terrible depression and anxiety, and I can't write this speech, and I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to come and talk here. That's when I realized that it is probably hard for people to talk about their stories once they are in the midst of experiencing their mental health problems. And even though I spent 2 years talking about how hard it is, but how important it is, I realized it's probably much harder, and that we still don't have the right language here, at least here in the Czech Republic, to talk about mental health. We still use a lot of words like madman, psych ward, Nutcase, and several others that are the thing that actually creates the stigma around mental health. And I wasn't even sure that that I would be the right person to change the language. But then I looked at all the different campaigns that they have in the UK and in the US and in Denmark and all around the world actually. And I thought, well, we can start sharing those pictures and those stories with young people in the Czech Republic. And because they understand English, and it's going to be all right if we just share them. And then I thought, okay, but that's still not changing the language, and that's still something coming to them from the outside. And English is often the language that they use to work and not to relax and not to take care of themselves. So what can we do about that? I thought it would be good to start developing a language, a dictionary, a way of talking about mental health and well-being, but also mental illness, that could help people not feel ashamed of when they have problems. And we started this project, and people actually started sharing our materials. They started sharing our small infographics. And in about a month, we had enough fans that tens of thousands of people have seen our materials. But what was very important for us was that it was not only shared by young people that have nothing, that didn't have anything to do with mental health before, but it was also shared by professionals, by psychologists, by psychiatrists, and they were coming to us saying, "Whoa, I didn't have this kind of language. I couldn't even explain to my family what I was doing in a way that it wouldn't seem scary." And they started sharing it. Hospitals, mental health facilities started sharing our materials. They started sharing the stories of people we collected, and it was very encouraging for us. So. Right now, when I was supposed to write an email about how I was lying in my bed and I couldn't get up and I couldn't write this bio that they wanted me to write and this draft of the speech, I already had some sort of idea how I could write it. And I wrote it, and I was just praying, really, that in several months I'll be okay and I'll be able to stand here and talk to you. Well, because I already had my ways and I had my psychiatrist on the phone and I had my meds, I was able to, in 2 months I was able to recover, which was much faster than I was used to before. And even though I'm not sure I can still say that I love my brain, I don't really hate it. I think the relationship now, it's complicated. That's my relationship status with my brain right now. But I think that's all right. I still think it's very important to acknowledge it and to not be ashamed of it and to talk about it. And these are the 22 people that we trained over the past year to go around Czech Republic, to go around high schools, to talk to teenagers, to develop their mental health dictionaries, the language that they talk about their mental health and well-being. And I'm really proud of them because they come from the environment of the Czech system. None of them, except of about 2 of them, studied abroad. None of them ever seen the campaigns that are going on there, and they still are able, after some training, to go around and to spread the word. And if there is one thing I would like to leave with today, is that even if you can't love your brain at the moment, it's all right. And I would like to encourage you to think about your mental health, to talk about it, and to think about the language you use when talking about it. Thank you.